everybody, welcome back to Visual Novel Book Club. I'm your pal Slowby. Of course, my good friend Jim.
Hey, everybody.
My good friend Rosella.
Hello.
My good friend Turbo C.
Hello.
My good friend Oren Ronan.
Good evening.
My good friend Polo Hoko.
Hey.
Full cast. We did it.
Again.
Yeah.
We did it. This is it. Well, this isn't it, but this is
the end.
Something's happening that's very it-like.
No more chapters after this one.
That's right. But this is it's a good year. It's 2022. It just started so far, you know.
For people listening to it, it's probably been like 2 months since the year started.
Yeah, right.
See, I was gonna have a joke where it's like we say like Happy Thanksgiving or Merry Christmas or some other like holiday that's not even close.
That's good to come up with on the fly and not tell anybody about that kind of joke too. So we can all like run with it. Yeah.
So now it's just you get to pretend. Imagine.
Yeah. Imagine the timeline where that joke was told and we all laughed. I hope. Look. That's great and all right. But I think the thing we're all here to talk about is like why it's been a while and we're all struggling to remember the events of the last reading because of holidays and everything.
Right.
So the big question I think we all have is what the hell happened at the end of chapter 4?
Well,
where did we leave off?
We left off at the point of the wound watch, or actually the unwound watch, potentially being the time of death, or actually the opposite of that, not being the time of death. And we needed to investigate the Red-Headed League, the 2 people that we saw in the office earlier. I refer to them as the Mario and Luigi that I don't particularly care for.
Okay.
The second time we've had a Luigi and Mario Brothers.
Yeah, I mean, when you've had one Mario and Luigi that's really good, and then you have these guys, it's not the same.
Right.
So who are these guys? I've forgotten their names. It's one of them is DeRossi, and I'm sure that's a reference to something. And then
I think it's De Rosso and De Rossi, one French and one Italian. Both means red.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah, I get it now. One of them is the problem is they're obnoxiously French and obnoxiously Italian. These 2.
And they had a good scheme. They almost got to get away with it.
Yeah, and they're willing to talk openly and admit it.
Even though, they did kidnap a police officer in the middle of it, but other than that, they had a good scheme.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the best laid plans, right? Or
so, what is the scheme behind the Red-Headed League?
Yeah, so it's a little less complicated than the one in the actual story, the Red-Headed League. They just wanted to get money from the people coming in to audition for the Red-Headed League role. It's
basically a Ponzi scheme, like from a magazine, where it's like, oh, you could be a part of the Red-Headed League if you just talk to us and, of course, pay a nominal registration fee.
Right.
Yeah, these guys aren't really that original. Yeah.
Well, you could say they did it first.
It works, right? I mean, to be fair, it does. It seems to work. I mean, it worked on Holmes, or Sholmes rather. Because he paid for it, presumably, right? Or no, they caught him out before then.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it worked on Gregson also.
Well, did it work on Gregson or did it work on
Well, no, it didn't work on either of them. It's because the person is investigating it. He's sussed out that it's a scam.
I think that's just cover. I don't think they're as more clever than Sholmes in this story.
Well, yeah. So, they get up on the stand. I remember that, and at first they cop to they cop to their scheme, basically, if I remember. And
yeah, they're really open about it.
Pretty much immediately.
I'm pretty sure because there's like an investigation for murder going on, so they'll openly admit to like the small time Ponzi scheme.
Then they kidnap the cop, and they know they have it in the back.
Yeah, I'll admit that part I was a little like not unclear per se, but it was just almost like that seems like the worst part of the plan far and away, which is, I mean, it wasn't part of the plan, right? Because, what happens? Like, Gregson's there, and he doesn't identify himself as a cop, right? Like, they figure it out, I think?
He does.
Or, oh, no! It's because the other guy came, right?
Right. We'll get to that part though, because that's going to be revealed later.
Yeah. So the trial, they asked if they recognized Gregson. Did he go to the Red-Headed League that day? And they look at the picture. They say, no, we do not recognize that guy. And we are fairly confident that he did go because I think it's because we have his. Do they give us his identification, or do we have that?
Not yet, but we did. I think we know that he went there because it was in his journal.
Right. So we're asking the questions to help them remember. And one of the questions, the first one that I asked is like, well, was he eating fish and chips? And of course they respond no, which if he wasn't doing that, then he probably wasn't Gregson. But one of the questions we can ask is, did he tell you what his profession was? And they do say that there was somebody who claimed to be from Scotland Yard there that day, but it's not the person in the picture. But they do then present the identification like they had it.
Yeah, they did have it. Yep.
You present some identification as well, reasoning that you think he's there.
Yeah, and they have it. They actually have the whoever got into the.
Yeah, and the reason that they have it is because they think it's a fake. Because this guy came to the Red-Headed League that day and said that he was from Scotland Yard. Wow, Scotland Yard.
It could be Scotland Yard. Why not?
And he made a big deal about he was a cop and he's there undercover. Look at my identification, and that seemed pretty odd to them, so they kept it. But also, they were worried that he might actually be a cop, and they didn't want to get found out, so they decided to kidnap him just to be safe.
Just a little kidnapping.
Yeah, it's just a little bit. Don't be a baby.
Just to be safe, kidnap the cop.
A tiny felony.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a little white felony,
Err on the side of caution and kidnap this cop, as they say.
Yeah, and Gina confirms that it is actually, in fact, Gregson's ID. This is not a fake ID.
Right. And it's a big to-do where it's like, well, this is obviously a fake ID because no member of Scotland Yard would, bandy that about, allow it to be stolen. Or if Gregson did allow it to be stolen, he would immediately report it.
Right.
But they do investigate it, and it is the genuine article. So they're thinking, maybe he didn't have a chance to report it or something to that matter.
Yeah, especially if, according to the timeline, if he's dead, then, if he's already killed at this point, then it couldn't have been, and then someone takes his ID, so that could get it out there.
Yeah. Now they're telling us about the kidnapping part of the story, and they basically when someone showed up and claimed they were a cop, they decided to just kidnap them for one night. Mm-hmm. Basically, I think what they want to do is kidnap them and then release them in the morning. And
so they can make their getaway, right?
Yeah,
because they were going to use the money to get away to France, I think.
Yeah, and the way that the reason they didn't succeed was it because the ticket got lost or something like that.
It was like didn't he set it for the wrong day? I thought it was kind of like because De Rossi, right, is like the one who keeps spilling the beans, but like. And Durso blames him, like, it's like, no, you got the ticket wrong, like, you got the wrong day, or whatever, and like, we could have left, but we had to wait an extra day because you messed up the date.
And he keeps looking up at the other one with this OU face, like it's a big joke.
Yeah. Well, they took the cop prisoner, and they locked him in another room, but they also confessed that they had, like, a little bit of a fight with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a little bit turns out to be that apparently when Rousseau has a little bit of a fight, he tries to strangle somebody and leaves a red mark on the neck.
Right. So they put him in the room, and then he escapes through the vent, and then they have to go get him again. And at that point, he puts like a collar around his neck and like drags him back to the room.
Mm.
And I'm just going to call him the big one and the little one for right now. The little one has that same mark on his neck because apparently this happened to him also at some point. He's familiar with how the big one apprehends people, and it's with a collar that leaves a specific mark.
And they do that thing. They've done this a lot in this game where like you discover the ring around his neck and the judge is like, is this important? And you have to go, yes, it's important. It's like, fine, we'll include it in testimony. And it's like, I don't think it's ever not been important, Like, it's never been the correct answer to be like, nah, forget it, But
yeah.
but they liked it. So whatever. We say it's important.
The problem with that is that the photograph of dead Gregson has no ring around his neck, so it can't possibly be the same person that they had in custody. And then we have to figure out how that could be, and we say that it was probably an imposter. It wasn't actually Gregson.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah.
And then that lines up with everything about, presenting the ID and saying that he was there undercover, but don't tell anybody. Shh.
Mm-hmm.
But then we actually have to tell the judge who was pretending to be Gregson. And did you all get that on the first try?
No.
I actually, I wanted to say the person in the picture first. Just because he kind of matched a description that the short one gave.
Yeah, well, it turns out to actually be that person, but I did it too.
Oh, you mean you guessed who it is, but it's not the character per se?
Yeah.
So you mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
I think I did that too.
So you have to give the answer of Mr. Gossip, the man with the twisted lip, because he does have that mark around his neck.
Yeah, and by the way, last episode, that killed me because we all knew how the actual story, the man with the twisted lips, goes, and yet nobody thought that Gossip was actually someone else. Even you, Jim. I for sure thought that you would get it.
Yeah.
That we actually have a man with a twisted lip, so it must be fake.
Well, as soon as they're like point out who has a red neck, I'm just like, oh yeah, the guy with the twisted lip, sure.
I didn't read that story, and I didn't see it coming, and I was surprised as hell, and I loved it.
Yeah, but the way I have to figure it out is because Gossip always had a red ring around the neck, which I didn't actually notice the first time, so it wouldn't have helped me. But you can see it in his profile picture.
I kind of noticed it. I thought he just had a dirty neck or something. Like his face is dirty too.
But in any case, when you look at the profile pictures, you can see it there. So
yeah, Ryusuke says something about it, about the ring around his neck when we first see him, doesn't he?
Does he? He might have. I don't remember.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me though. They like to put little hints like that in there.
Yeah, because I remember that's how I figured it.
Yeah.
So now we call Gossip to the stand.
Yeah. So we have to prove that mark is the mark that was from the collar that was put around his neck. And of course, he wants to tell us it's a birthmark, and he doesn't want us to pry into his personal life because he maintains that he's got nothing to do with this.
Yeah, I think if you keep going after Rousseau, he'll talk about the fact that Gossip used the name Hugh Boone. I guess, and he actually does rent the room where Gregson was found. Which at this point, it's this
right,
really
yeah.
It really seems to be pointing everything towards whoever Gossip is.
Right. He says that he doesn't even go to that part of town, and DeRossi says that he's seen him there, that he's been talking to a landlord there and gave papers over with the name Hugh Boone. So he is connected to this case.
And then, if you just, what do you call it? You keep pressing him, you show him the photograph, which is pretty clearly the woman who approached us right at the beginning of this episode, Mrs. Vigil. And then eventually, it's very obvious that it's Daily Vigil. He doesn't want to admit it, but if you keep pushing, obviously he's just going to confess that, yeah, okay, it is. And he takes it, the lips just pop off. Like, it just seems to just go straight off. Like, it's all just fake. And, and then as soon as you press him, it's just apparently that, he'll show, his actual true face.
I like that if you actually look at the two pictures of them, they do have like the same kind of hair. You can kind of see it if you know it.
No, that's how I made the connection.
It's weird too, though, because like he's got, like his face like aligns with just certain changes. Clearly, he's like putting his jaw to the side, and his eyes are kind of covered by the hair, pressed down by the cap. Yeah, so it should be really obvious if I had thought about it. But anyway, he says that after he needed a way to... So in this case, unlike the actual man with the twisted lip, which is, in that story, it's a guy who finds out that begging is actually more profitable I don't know why Conan Doyle think it would be, but apparently it was more profitable than being a newspaper guy, journalist. But in this case, the only thing he could do after being fired as chief warder is to be a peddler, doing the gossip stuff, and it is not enough to actually keep his family, cared for and all that kind of stuff to earn a living. And so he supplements this by working for Gregson as Gregson's like body double. So, the reason why he goes in and flashes the badge around even when he's supposed to be undercover and keeps saying I'm an inspector, all this kind of stuff, is because he's making himself known as Gregson to be someplace when it seems like Gregson needs an alibi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Gregson comes to him. He doesn't know why they're doing all of this, but Gregson comes to him sometimes and tells him that he has to be at some place or another, gives him his ID, and tells him to just make a scene.
Yep.
Just like prove that Gregson is out and about and keeping the streets of London safe, yada, yada, yada.
Vigil calls it a hoo-ha.
I mean, I will say, like, this is pretty cool. And at this point, I have no idea what Gregson's really up to. You know what I mean, then? Because that's like, immediately then, it's like, why the hell does Gregson need a body double,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think at this point it should be like really suspicious for Gregson about like being the actual Reaper.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, it can't be Gregson. He can't be the Reaper.
I mean, he was so worried about Gina. Like, why would he have been so freaked out about it and like smuggling her off to France?
What it feels like to me is that this is a case possibly where two people who aren't the Reaper are investigating each other, and then and the need to sort of hide the fact that you're investigating somebody makes you also look guilty to the other guy.
What if they're both investigating each other as the Reaper and like killing criminals to kind of provoke the other Reaper? And this is all like a big misunderstanding, and then we have a good laugh at the end of chapter 4. Anyway,
a real O. Henry moment. Yeah.
I better kill some criminals to throw them off the trail.
I'm jumping ahead a little, but we do learn a little later that there's more people involved. I mean, Gregson is probably involved, but there are more people. So maybe he's worried about Gina because he might not want her killed, but he's worried that some of the other people involved in this are going to kill her anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I trust Gregson with my life. You can't take that away from me.
I was stuck between Gregson's the Reaper or working with, or somehow like the Reaper, or is secretly investigating the Reaper and has this body double to throw off whoever the real Reaper is, who he probably thinks is like at Scotland Yard or is like Maelstrom or something like that. You know what I mean? That was like my two competing theories, which like don't count as anything because they're completely contradictory. But whatever.
I mean, I started thinking Gregson might be the Reaper when they kind of point out earlier in the game where his opinion of the Reaper was kind of like, that Reaper's okay. I think he does a good job. Like, that was Gregson's opinion. And that usually leads towards him being it.
So my favorite part, unless anybody has other theory crafting, is the next testimony. It's not really my favorite part at all, really. Where we bring Gossip up to the stand and we have to prove that he's actually somebody in a mask or, disguised, and he is, and we know who it is, right? Wait, we already did that part. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Never mind. I was looking earlier in my notes. I'm sorry.
But it is one thing that I really like to mention was when the judge says for the Redheaded League to apprehend Gossip. The animation on that was really good, and they're just like, all right, yeah, let's get down into this. Let me start choking people.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I mean, you have to admire Vigil because when the mask is on, he's totally in character. He's like wacky and animated and stuff. And then when the mask is off, he's like sad. He's not very animated at all.
He touches his face a lot.
He does. He does this weird like motion with his arms where it's almost like the hands of a clock or whatever.
It's like the Madonna Vogue hands or something.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to.
But I really do like the next testimony because like after we've done all this, Kazuma kind of rightly points out that basically it's proven that this has nothing to do with Gregson and our entire theory is shot. And then is like, so, but while you're on the stand, I want you to testify about 10 years ago. And the judge is just like, what does this have anything to do with the proceedings? And he's like, totally. I mean, obviously, right? Like, right, Naruhodo? You're with me, right?
Well, here's the thing. This is bullshit, because this is the prosecution saying that these events from 10 years ago have significance to this case. And if this were us, we would have had to present 3 or 4 different pieces of evidence to the judge and beg him to let us continue. But when Kazuma wants to do it, the judge is like, well, if you say so, and he doesn't have to prove anything.
But I think they do ask us if we agree to that line of questioning, right?
But he doesn't have to prove it, is what I'm saying.
How great would it be if we actually did say no and we just had to like he had to keep just presenting shit and doing stuff and bringing in witnesses, you know?
Yeah,
and,
you do it now.
Yeah, just like 30 minutes of nice, easy, like kick your feet up and let the other guy flounder, you know?
Maybe have a glass of wine while you're waiting. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
Toss some bottles into the stands.
I think my learned friend has forgotten what year it is, right, Your Honor?
I mean, hell, you can call him your learned Nipponese friend. You can be like, go ahead. My friend from Nippon is going to take his chances now.
If Kazuma loses all his points, does that mean we win?
Yeah. Yes.
I've never tried that before. That'd be great.
Well, Vigil doesn't remember anything about what happened 10 years ago. It's all cloudy. He's traumatized.
Right.
That's right.
And he even specifically says, like, yeah, I don't know why I resigned. And we're like, hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, he has PSD. Absolutely.
He does.
For like legitimate PTSD, because as he sort of gets provoked by it, because you have to present like the dismissal notice, be like, "Yo, you were fired, dude," and he's sort of going through this, and he like has this like revelatory moment where it all comes flooding back to him, and he realizes, and I guess content warning, real quick. He attempted suicide after he was accused of being involved in it. He jumps out a window, which was like they suspected him of being involved in the professor not actually being executed. He's just
being in on the jailbreak.
Yeah, so he just apparently after someone is executed, there's only a couple people in the room. He's supposed to examine the body afterwards to confirm the death. When he walked in the court, the coffin was nailed up. He just took the word of the people who would put them in the coffin and was just like, okay, I'm just going to sign the death certificate. And when it turned out the professor wasn't actually dead, he's the first one accused, obviously, because his name is on that death certificate.
I mean, yeah, because it was like only the executioner and the coroner were in the room at the time. And we know who the coroner is because that was Stevens, but that's not her last name anymore. Courtney. But we don't actually know who the executioner is, but they were the only 2 people in the room. And yeah, usually it's Vigil's job to nail up the coffin, but it already was. But he guessed he didn't find that suspicious enough to like raise an alarm about it.
I think we learn all that later during the investigation, right? Because right now he just faints and we end the trial.
Right, but we do get the image of him being questioned and of the breaking glass and him going through it.
Yeah.
On another note about the animation, for all the times I've praised this game for having really good animations, the way how they're showing Visual just going like off the deep end in a way is just him spinning around at increasingly faster frequencies.
I mean, it works for Punch Out. It didn't really work for Punch Out.
But yeah, so he has to be taken to the hospital after he sort of collapses from all this. And that's the trial gets adjourned. And then we go to the end of this case, which is the investigation part 2.
End of this chapter.
Yeah, the end of this chapter. So the trial isn't going to be concluded this time. It's going to be concluded in the next. I assume it's going to be included in the next chapter.
Wouldn't it be something if we just skipped on to another one?
Yeah. You're like, yeah.
We'll just assume that it works out.
Yeah.
They're just going to execute Van Zix off screen, and we can go into the next trial.
Oh, let's see what Soseki's up to again.
I tried my best anyway.
Van Zeeks went back to his home planet.
I guess we'll never know who the Reaper is. Well, anyway, off to Japan. Let's see here. So, what do you call it? We go back to Sholmes' suite now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the first thing they started talking about is Kazuma and his insistence, the way he seems to be so obsessed with this, which, is pretty obvious why he is. This case is deeply connected to the professor 10 years ago, his father being accused and convicted and executed eventually. And so he's pursuing the truth here, and it's obsessive, and Ryunosuke and Sasato sort of talk about that. And I think that's when they get into so the whole thing with the as they've sort of established this timeline that seems to, because once you establish the imposter and the fact that you don't know where Gregson was, it undermines the case that it wasn't Von Zieks, because it still could be Von Zieks at this point, even with clearly Vigil being involved, it could still be Von Zieks. But the only way to exonerate him is to establish that time of death. Like, it has to be set for that day before, and you need that to happen. And sort of like you want to know, like, where is this coming from? Who why is there no time of death on the death certificate? And I think the other two things they talk about is about this whole, so this is when they really get into the whole background of what's involved, that sort of like, why was Gregson using an alibi, what's he hiding there, and also that I guess they point out that Vigil's in St. Sinners, and they make a funny thing, like, I guess there's only one hospital that's open right now.
I mean, how many hospitals do you need for the 13 residents of London?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, you could take care of that one floor. Don't even need to.
There you go.
Now we take Iris with us
Yes.
to visit prisons and Lord Chief Justice office and places like that. Great places for a little Jigan.
Well, she doesn't seem to mind. It's like we're not being irresponsible.
No, she loves it, of course.
He's chaperoning us.
I wouldn't have taken her to the morgue, though. Just a thought.
Yeah. But I think the first one I went to was the Lord Chief Justice office, in which is funny because what you talk to him about it, and it's like, we did the reason why there was a closed trial is because there's this is involving the act, this is a prosecutor on trial and all this kind of stuff, and then he just wanted, the reason why he had Cosmo there was to be a really quick trial. Like, he just wanted somebody, an outsider in there to do this, and they want it done fast. And he's like, but the funny thing is, like, he knows that Cosmo has an ulterior motive. It's pretty clear that he understands what that ulterior motive is. And he mentions that this is going to cause them problems because it's going, his pursuit of the truth from 10 years ago is going to extend this case, which is the last thing that he wants.
Which it demonstrably has.
Oh, well, he could just take him off the trial.
Yeah, when we first go into the office, it's the two of them talking, and he's doing that thing where it's like, okay, no more, you need to stick to the plan or whatever. So he's clearly not happy with what Cosmo's doing.
And it's clear that Cosmo's not going to do it either. He's just like,
I mean, yeah, he's like, well, what the fuck are you going to do? Stop me?
Yeah, like, you could remove me from the trial, but he's not going to do that either.
What are you going to do? Send the Reaper after me? I'm not scared of him.
The other big thing we do is we ask for permission to talk to Kazuma, which is just a dreadfully, like, childish thing to do. But I guess we need it to know, like, even where he is. And it turns out, apparently, that he's staying in Von Zieks' place, because we really only have room for one prosecutor. And, Von Zieks is in jail, so...
Hey, it's not being used at the moment, so...
Yeah, it's a large office. They need to use it for something.
But he's got to use a little table, damn it. He can't use the big boy desk. You got to go sit down there.
Von Zieks going to get out of the prison and be like, you didn't sit at my table, did you? No.
But I think if we go there now, he's not there.
Yeah.
I went there a little bit later and he wasn't there, so...
Yeah, you got to go to prison first, I think.
Mm.
The only good thing that if you do go to prison is that he actually, like, he starts off being mean again, and then I forget who says something to him.
It's Naruto. He basically says, is that really the way to talk to the person who's trying their best to prove your innocence? Von Zieks is just like, you know what, you're right, actually.
And then he's totally amenable for, like, the rest of the conversation. Like, he's back to being somebody who's polite and decent to you.
Which is like doubly hilarious because as soon as he decides to do that, his theme kicks in, and his theme is a bunch of ominous organ music. So it's like, oh god, he's being polite, like to us.
What could this mean?
It's a really good moment.
But yeah, this is kind of an info dump, really, from Van Zeeks. He starts off kind of admitting to us that he feels like this is kind of retribution against him for everything that he did, which what he did is just kind of allowed himself to, what does he say? He let people think that he's the Reaper without, he didn't deny it. And his reasoning for that is, well, if people think that I'm the Reaper, then they might not do crimes anymore. So I'll just let it happen.
He was Harvey Denting it.
Yeah.
So then we have that, and then we have the information where he gives us his ideas on who the Reaper might actually be, and this is where we're kind of presented with the idea that Gregson is not the Reaper, but is involved with kind of the organization responsible for the Reaper.
He's the brains, and he has an executioner.
Calls him the tactician.
Yeah. And then they drop the name of the assassin that he thinks is doing all of it, and it's the aptly named Assassin.
Yeah, the famous Asian.
Assassin.
Yeah.
How do you say that? Assassin. The Asian
is how you
assassin.
say it.
Yeah. I'm just trying to put it all together. Assassin, the Asian assassin.
Yeah, and as we know, Assassin is Giselle Brett.
And she's dead.
And she's dead.
Mm-hmm. In Japan, yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe. I don't know. We didn't see the body ourselves.
By some reporter. I'm not a great assassin. I don't know, you know.
So now I can tell you the full name of the Japanese version of this. I tell you Sasha is the last name. So it's Anne Sasha.
I'm Sasha. Oh,
and I think
yeah.
Anne is a better name for an English woman than Asa, but...
Asa, yeah.
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 The word for assassin in Japanese is ansatsusha. And it does the trick where Sasha is written, if you know any Japanese writing, is written with a small tsu, and ansatsusha has a big tsu. So it's kind of the same.
Oh, cute.
But it's also, you write it down and you change the small tsu to a big tsu, and that's ansatsusha, which is just assassin.
Yep.
So it's basically the same pan.
I see.
That is a lot better.
Little wordplay. I get it. Yeah.
Except that assassin doesn't really work for me as a name for an English lady.
Yeah, neither of those names feel correct.
That's the thing. Like Shin, when I saw, I could swear would be a Japanese person.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? When we learned the name at first, but then, what do you know?
Yep.
But I guess that's one of those "what are you gonna do" kind of things. I guess, you know, like you can't really name, like you can't use the Killa because I think the second game did already. So you know.
And then so after this big reveal of Shin being involved with Gregson, comes two things that pretty much tell you that Asogi probably isn't the killer, or wasn't the professor. Because first off, Van Zeek says he can't make sense of why his brother was murdered because everybody else before was corrupt aristocrats. His brother wasn't that; he was a prosecutor. And you know he's sure that they come from apparently noble blood, but he's not another corrupt person involved in all this kind of stuff that's like actually harming the populace. And the second thing
I want to stop you there for a second. I'm thinking there might be a little bias there because it's like, oh, all these other guys were assholes, but not my brother. He was good.
Sure, it's a possibility, but I mean, the people who were killed were very openly, you know, sort of the people that are in control of things. And at the very least, as a prosecutor, he's not high on that list. He's not somebody who's sort of the elite who are in control of society.
Look at me, I'm a rich criminal. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, like sure. I mean, you could be a tool.
Yeah, Von Zeeks didn't have a mustache to twirl.
Yeah, you can definitely be a tool as a prosecutor in executing this stuff, but you're not part of the sort of the leadership. You're not the people who are calling the shots.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so he's not a priority target at least. But the next thing he says is that Genshin Asogi saved his life at one point because they were investigating the whole professor thing together.
Yeah, because Genshin Asogi was apparently practically family. They just they were very good friends with him.
Yeah. And he admired him, which is part of the whole thing of why he, you know, his whole racism thing before, because he felt so betrayed by his friend. And yeah, Genshin saved his life. This is supposed to be right before he kills his brother. The two don't add up, and it starts to become real obvious that the game is sending him hints that Genshin Isogi was not actually the person doing this. He may have been involved in something corrupt, but he wasn't this actual mass killer.
He literally took a bullet for Van Zieks.
Yeah. Yeah, that throws another wrench in the works.
And then Van Zieks is like, I can't believe my racism might have been unfounded, but.
It's the kind of thing where he starts saying it and you expect to be like, you know what, saying it out loud, it doesn't make much sense. Maybe I was wrong for the last 10 years.
I can't believe I impugned an entire race of people on such flimsy circumstances. What the hell was I thinking?
I mean, sure, he saved my life before, but I want to know. I want to see what that process was. It's like, well, this guy's practically family. He saved my life, but now he definitely killed my brother. That doesn't make sense. What should I do? Just be racist my whole life.
I should stick to my forte, putting people in jail. Oh, wait a minute. Anyway.
But who did he protect Van Zieks from? Who did he take the bullet from?
I don't think we know yet, right? Isn't that the whole thing?
I think the thing was it was just generic thugs.
Two dudes with guns.
Yeah, as Clint's brother, he was like a target because they wanted to get to Clint, I guess.
Okay, yeah, I for some reason had in my mind that it was the police, which would be wild, but probably not actually it.
I feel like he might have mentioned that.
No, yeah, the police are really on the up and up here in this game. No, I mean, I guess the police, though, would be on Van Zieks' side, right? Unless he was
they couldn't control him or whatever.
Yeah.
Or he took down a corrupt cop or something. You know what I mean? Agreed to prosecute or whatever. I mean, yeah, it could be a million things in this crazy world of ours.
But yeah, either way, they were explicitly saying it's Van Zieks, get him, and Genshin takes the bullet.
Sorry, I just imagined that scene in my head and it was funny.
Well, that's all the info dump we get from Van Zieks right now.
And it was kind of an info dump. He just kind of blabs all this before. Before he wouldn't say anything to us, but now he's just perfectly comfortable about saying all this.
Yeah, this whole investigation is a series of info dumps.
Yeah.
But since he did tell us that Asashin was, an assassin sent to Japan, we figure that maybe we should tell the Japanese government about this?
No, why?
What are they gonna do?
That's a ridiculous suggestion.
When has government ever solved anything in this game?
Whoa, let's keep the Phoenix Wright politics to a minimum here, everybody.
So we decide to go back to visit Suzada's dad and see, I think, just try to send a telegram.
Oh, wasn't it
to Japan?
Herlock Sholmes that gives us a telegram that we have to send?
Yeah, I think that's it.
I think that's later, but at least I thought we wanted to talk to Mikotoba about the whole, by the way, did you know that, no. See, the other thing is we don't want to talk in front of Iris about, Wilson being murdered.
Right, because
we have cruel.
We have a name to put with Wilson's murderer now, so we have to talk to him about it.
But I'm not I kind of get it early on because it's I don't know how to break this and whatever. But it's been a while now. You know what I mean? You can, and I know, but whatever. It's come on. But anyway.
Well, this entire game is people withholding information from each other. Everybody, all the time, is just not saying everything.
Yep.
Just take a shot every time someone says, I can't tell you that right now.
Yeah.
Not right now. When the timing's right.
People go into a restaurant and the people behind the counter are like, what do you want? And they're like, I'll tell you tomorrow.
Can you just do that? You know what I mean? If you miss a deadline at work and it's Slobi, where's that report? And I was like, I will tell you what happened to the report, but it's not the time for it.
Yeah, you just have to upsell it. He's like, now's not the time to discuss that.
Well, we do talk to Mikotoba about Dr. Wilson, though. Iris is is smart enough to take... not Iris, Susato is smart enough to take Iris away for a while. So we're going to talk to Mikotoba about Dr. Wilson. And Mikotoba says that he's pretty sure he knew Dr. Wilson, obviously, because he invited him to Japan. And he's pretty sure that he wasn't Sholmes' partner. ever.
He's like, no, I can tell you for a fact that he was not ever Sholmes' partner. Which is a very emphatic statement.
Does he reveal the association between Wilson and himself yet, or is that later?
No.
No.
Between Wilson and himself, I'm pretty sure he did.
Well, we do know that they were acquaintances because he's the one who invited Wilson to Japan in the first place.
Yeah, that was from the last game, yeah.
And they obviously worked together when he was a student in Britain. But that's curious because if Dr. Wilson was never Holmes' partner, then whose notes are these?
How would he know that? He would have had to be with Holmes like all the time. Weird. Anyways.
And then the other thing they have is the judge is out like exploring the Great Exhibition. But they, look, the picture we took together, the group photo we have, and let's enter it in the court record for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah,
I'm sure
just
this
put
will
it
come up
in
later.
there. It won't mean anything.
Just a picture.
It's just a nice picture. We want you to look at it.
Not everything has to be about trial, We can have the court record be our pleasant souvenirs.
Well, I mean, there is the armband that thus far hasn't served any purpose.
There's an achievement if you show that to Van Zeeks.
Yeah.
And I got it.
What's the name of it?
Oh, hold on a sec. Let me see here.
Well, I guess it wasn't that important of an achievement then, was it?
Well, it was toward the platinum, so yeah, it was. Thank you. Let's see. The trophy.
Yeah, I treat each individual achievement like it's a platinum.
Yeah. I know the name of every achievement I've ever gotten.
Amateurs.
Amateurs. That's the masculine.
The one good thing is though that after that goes in, then the next thing that happens is Mikitoba takes Ryunosuke aside and says he wants him to return to Japan.
Yeah, that was the favor that he wanted.
We're short on defense attorneys, and you clearly are a good one, so we need you to go back.
He's really, really nice to us about it. He's like, no, like you really impressed me. Really seeing you in trial today just really inspired me. I know you're the man for the job. He's really buttering us up. It's very sweet.
Yeah. Anyways, get on the boat right now.
Don't investigate any further.
Ask no questions.
But of course, for some reason, Ryunosuke hasn't thought about this before. He's just like, oh no, I thought I'd just stay in London forever. But no, and I did. Obviously, there's no answer given right now, and you're going to conclude this trial, so you sort of move on, and that's when Holmes comes up and is like, I need to send a telegram.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't talk to her father at this particular point, and leaves it with Sasato to deliver. And he takes off, and then Iris calls for the carriage, and now it's time to go over and talk to Daily Vigil in his hospital bed and get some more info dumps.
Yep.
It's always sad when someone's in the hospital for info dumps.
So we walk up to him and we're like, so about your trauma.
Yeah.
Very serious condition.
This is when really we get the details that I think I talked about earlier, that Vigil had said that Gregson, I just need alibis. I need you to show up someplace and cover for me when I'm investigating the Reaper. Because then he also gets into sort of the details of the escape, and that he believes that he had that Asogi had assistance because of the whole thing with the sort of the coffin being nailed shut and this kind of thing. And so the last time, and this is going to be real important, the last time that Vigil interacted with Genshin Asogi was when he was allowed a lot of comforts despite being accused of all these murders in his prison. But the one thing he wasn't allowed was writing instruments. And Vigil discovers that he does have actual pen and paper, and he's writing what he says is his last will and testament. And he also describes it as a weapon, and that this kind of vague alluding to these kind of things clearly set this whatever he was writing as something important, because after the whole thing with the botched execution and the escape and him actually dying, they searched through Asogi's effects, and the will isn't there, and the actual head of the prison, I forget what that guy's name was, but he was clearly desperate. Yeah, he was clearly desperate to find it.
And he knew it was there, despite him not... Like, there was no reason he should have known that those papers were there.
Yeah, and when he's looking for it, instead of calling it the will, he refers to it as the Asogi papers, which just sounds like he's trying to take down the government, like, right away. And so it's time to go talk to the prison governor, to go talk to old Barry Caden.
Yeah.
And then we'll get an info dump from him.
And like, Vigil like begs us not to tell anyone that he told us about this. And I just find it very funny that we immediately go to Caden.
We immediately go there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, who like who else is going to have told us this?
We dredge up the guy's most, like, the worst memories of his life, put him in the hospital. He's going to have to admit to his wife that, well, actually, no, he might not have to because this was a closed case and, yeah, there was no jury or anything. So he could continue that lie if he wanted to.
Except that now his income has been turned off again.
Oh yeah, his income is gone. So no, he's definitely admitting to his wife that he's been lying for 10 years.
Plus the fact he's just been missing for 4 days in a row.
I mean, how are we going to break that? Hey, we found him. We found your husband.
He's in the hospital.
Yeah, actually, that's about how. Now give me my money.
I mean, I guess, at least, he's in the hospital. At least that gives you some time to, it seems like a reasonable excuse for being AWOL. You get some pity right away, probably. So if you can leverage that, you might be able to get a story out of it.
I wonder if he has a GoFundMe.
Too bad he didn't come up with that first, too. No.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, when we go to talk to Barry Caden, he's convinced that it was the Courtney, whatever her name was at the time, and Daily Vigil were the two that had to have been responsible. Because she signs, she's the coroner, and he's the one who's supposed to confirm. And he doesn't believe that he wasn't involved. And he also gives us the information now that Courtney Scythe is no longer, as the coroner, that for this case, the person who filled out that death, Gregson's autopsy and everything was her daughter, Maria Gorey. So she's the one who you're going to have to talk to about this.
He also mentions that Scythe is not allowed to take any visitors.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. It very much seems like someone does not want what she knows getting public.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of cover-up things happening here.
Yeah, and then when you talk about the Asogi papers and them being missing, Caden says, no, they aren't. I have them right here. And so he passes over what are presumed to be the actual Asogi papers. And it is, it's clearly writing in Japanese that they don't understand, or claim not to understand. He also asks Ryunosuke to keep it confidential. He says that he don't have anything to do with Gregson's case, but we don't know for sure now. But he agrees to keep it confidential, and then you finally get to talk to Kazuma at this point. If you go to the prosecutor's office, he's there.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we can read the will and testament. Then Caden just says it's like, it's just some really boring, I leave everything I own to my son, blah blah blah. And Tsunada's like, no, that is basically it. That's all it says.
Yep.
So, no answers to be found there.
If these are the real Asogi papers.
Big if.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're pretty skeptical there.
Yeah, I don't know why I would be.
There's maybe one or two situations happening here. Either those are completely forged documents written by somebody else, or
somebody else who knows Japanese.
Yeah, well, it could be some. I don't know. Maybe it's the judge or somebody. Or it's one of those like Marvin Acme things where it's like it's written in like special ink where like the real message shows up later.
Or it could be incomplete. Maybe what he was writing was both an actual will and testament and some other additional information that is now the part that's missing.
Yeah, send everything to my son. Also, fuck the government.
Yeah.
Right.
But we don't know any of that now. So when we talk to Kazuma, we another info dump of like the backstory of
everyone is telling us the backstory in this chapter.
Yeah, it's just everyone's got a bad case of the info dumps this time.
Oh. Jeez, I think it's something in the water.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's my tragedy.
No, wait, I need to tell you my tragedy first.
Yeah, so what he just sort of came to in a cabin when they were about to put him off in Hong Kong or something, and he just takes off on his own and knows that since he understands English and he knows the law, so he has this sort of thing in his head going, go to Britain and practice law. That's sort of his almost, his drive to get there. And so he also goes into the whole backstory with his father, because he had been told I think the whole time that his father died from illness when they were traveling, and he'd always suspected that wasn't true because they were always kind of fishy on the details. But eventually, he just gets a straight up letter, an anonymous letter mailed from England that tells him exactly what happened. And it seems like the letter was intended sort of as someone who's angry with him.
Yeah, I think that it's one of the professor's victims' relatives that just found out about all of this and decided to send the professor's family like an angry letter.
I mean, isn't that Von Zieks or Van Zieks?
No, I don't think so.
Like, that's what I thought. It was him that wrote it. Because, like, he would have known Japanese maybe because of being around a Japanese person all the time.
Oh my god, what if they were trying to cancel him? Right? And just like, you need to disavow your murderer brother or else, right? Or father, rather, you know?
Brother, wow.
Look.
I know Von Zieks has a brother and Cosma has a dad, and it's very confusing. I'm with you on that one.
Listen, I've kind of come up with topical humor on the fly here, and maybe grind alien isolation trophies while we're talking, you know? It's a lot of multitasking. Maybe, but you know. Die 100 times to the alien. I mean, come on, get out of here, people. Oh, I'm sorry, I digress. But
yeah. So anyway, after Cosmo gets this awful letter, he shows it to the judge, and like even though he tries to cover up his knowledge, like he gives it away right away. Like Cosmo picks up on the fact that he's lying. That like, oh yeah, this is the truth. And so he's vows at that point that he's going to go to Britain and uncover the truth for himself. And so when you ask him about Von Zieks, he still believes that Von Zieks is the Reaper. And
we state, like, no, the Reaper was Gregson. Like, that, those words get put in our mouth, which still feels weird to me because I don't believe it for a second.
Yeah. And also, like, I still kind of think that I'm not saying Gregson isn't involved, but I can't see him being, like, the actual brains of the operation or even somebody who wasn't trying to undermine whatever was going on. But anyway, yeah, as soon as Renosuke believes that it's Gregson and Cosmo doesn't, and clearly Cosmo has a grudge against Von Zieks for being the prosecutor in the trial of his father.
Yeah, like his kind of words are like, he died because of Van Zieks' actions, and therefore he's responsible.
Yeah. And then so if you show him the autopsy report, then you can go visit Maria Gori.
Oh, he does also give us some backstory on his sword. Just because he really can't help himself.
And this is where he points out that Karuma, it was like made by like a master swordsman who like was descended from like warrior clans or whatever. But like one of the sword master's like apprentices actually took the sword's name as like a surname. So that's supposed to be like the origin of Karma in the later games.
And that doesn't make any sense in the English version.
No. Yeah, but I think it's cool.
In Japanese, yeah, this is supposed to be the origin of the Karuma prosecutor.
But it doesn't really make sense either way, because it's this guy is such a good prosecutor or lawyer. I'm going to change my name to his sword. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like some German guy, too, presumably.
No, he's not German in Japanese.
I mean, I guess he said Mein Gott first, but, still.
I told you already, this is not German in Japanese.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
In the Japanese games, everyone is Japanese. The entire international cast thing is entirely localization invention.
I see. All right. Well, then that does make a little more sense.
It's more fun to imagine my version, though.
Yeah.
I gotta say, it's always a master smith that always makes the swords. It's never just like, here's Toby. He made my sword.
Toby the dog?
You can't have a sword named Toby.
I don't think you name swords.
Like, who the fuck names their sword Toby?
Well, Gina, obviously.
I just think that you don't name a sword unless it's made by a master swordsman. Like, what's the point?
I guess, yeah. I mean, you'd have to name them like the fish in Finding Nemo is the only way it would really work, I think. Because, like, otherwise, you know what I mean? Like, your regular sword you make by the hundreds, right? You only fold that one like 30, 40 times, I guess. I don't know swords, but, like... yeah, and it's like, this is Harry number 46. That's the only way it could work. But then the really good ones like, oh, well, that's the Dragon Slayer.
Looking up sword names on Google.
You have to think that, like, the master swordsmen are like, there's a limited amount of swords they can make. So they're not going to give it to every old schmuck who comes in looking for a sword. They're like, no, you don't get a name sword. Get out of here. And so you got to think there's guys out there like going to like Steve, the local sword guy, and then they name it themselves. Like, I'm going to give it a name. It's going to be a name, Steven's sword. I don't know, but I'm giving my sword a name. I don't care.
Listen. It's like when you go into Build-A-Bear and they give you a little certificate when you walk out.
It's not at all like that, I'd hope.
Would you like to pay $5 extra for your sword to eat souls?
Hold on. Wait, you did just explain NFTs though.
Yeah, swords are just like NFTs.
Yeah.
No, because swords have like an intrinsic value to them.
You can use swords for stuff.
No, but the certificate has no intrinsic value. If you were like, here, I'm going to go to Build-A-Bear, I'm going to build a bear, and then I'm going to sell you this certificate they gave me at the end. It's just as good as the bear.
Well, now I'm imagining swords that are like, they're all purple and rainbow and shit. They've got glasses on them.
Are we reinventing NFTs?
And then these like robots come out and they go, I don't know what you're laughing at. That's gonna be the future. That's those sword certificates. You better get on the frickin' ball here and get some sword certificates.
Yeah, if you don't get on this, you're gonna get left in the dust.
Clearly, you just haven't educated yourself about these sword certificates.
Yeah, you people.
Good luck buying bread from your family when you don't have any sword certificates and I have all of them.
Do you see these? These are all my mortgages. I have so many.
They're non-fungible. You can't change these certificates, all right? It's not possible. Anyway.
So it's time to visit Maria Gori and ask her about the missing time of death.
Yeah, we can actually see her face this time.
Well, I want to point out before we get into anything, we go back into the morgue and she's turned the desk into like a little puppet stand, like a little puppet show stage with a bunch of little dolls on it.
And the dolls are super cute. Like there's like a little like stuffed plague doctor.
Right.
He's got the little mask and like a cat.
There's a little clown that looks evil.
A hanged skeleton.
Now, how old do you think she's supposed to be?
I don't know.
13.
34.
Because they made her a coroner.
Well, you know, Iris is an author, so what the fuck's the point?
Yeah, but Iris did it on her own. And
Iris isn't an official, yeah.
Well, maybe Gori did it on her own. We don't know that.
It's probably like coroner seems like something that you would need to apprentice for it, right? Like you've got to learn a lot for it, and maybe she's just the one who knows the most now that Courtney is in jail.
I think that she's 13 or 14 because she's in that really edgy phase where she's always sharpening her knives in front of us and talking about death and gore and stuff that's super edgy and cool.
Yeah, that was definitely the age where I would just recite Edgar Allan Poe at people, so
yeah.
That checks out.
I read this awesome comic called Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. Check it out.
We're going to go hang out in the cemetery just because we can.
Yeah. But she does have the Plague Knight mask, which I think is cute.
Yeah.
Also, her ribbon on her coat is a little, like, sad, stitched face. Anyway, that's enough about her fashion. I'm done.
Yeah, she was, and on to something slightly more important is that she was ordered not to put the time of death on the death certificate.
By who? Lord Maelstrom.
Yeah, she thought it was inconclusive.
Well, we asked why Lord Maelstrom told her not to put the time of death on there, and the answer was that it was, like, not important or whatever.
no, she couldn't determine the time of death. And then Strongheart told her that if it can't be determined, then it's not important, then she just shouldn't write anything.
Yeah.
But the reason that she couldn't determine it was not because the body itself, she couldn't determine it from the body itself, but because she found a fish in his pocket from the fish and chips, which was beginning to rot, which didn't make sense because the timing wasn't right. So it made it suspicious.
Yeah, especially because he eats
suspicious
fish so often. It's not going to start to rot. It's got he'd have to be dead for a while.
Because the body was fresh, but the fish wasn't.
Right.
And she does have a hypothesis for this. She does think that, like, well, okay, so what could have happened is, like, if you took the body and, like, threw it in, like, some industrial chiller, then that would disguise the time of death, but, like, if the overcoat wasn't on it at the time, then the fish in the overcoat would rot, but the body would look like it died later. But I don't think it's like, but that's all hypothetical. It's like, I don't think that kind of thing exists, like, in London.
Yeah. It does fit with our theory, though, that he was killed much earlier than we are told he was.
I do want to say that we get to this point after having like a little moment with her. Like, I realize that we barely know this character and she's probably not going to appear again. But she has this little moment where she's like afraid of becoming her mother, which, you know, she doesn't want to be disgraced for having covered stuff up. So that's why she's so forthright with this information and even her own hypothesis on it.
Finally, a character who's like, it makes sense that they're forthcoming to us.
This is, of course, after her, like, going into literally gory details about how Gregson's autopsy went and how nice it was, like, how nice he was to dissect, and it gets kind of gross. Until we're like, hey, what if we didn't talk about that, actually?
And then she's like, anyways, do you want me to do that to you?
Haven't seen the guts of an Asian person, just reminding you, you know, but... I think she actually does say that at one point, too. I mean, I was making a little joke. Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah, she definitely... It's definitely there. The next thing is... she talks about the fact that her mother was... So she didn't just do the autopsy on Genshin, she did the autopsy on Clint Van Zieks, which determined that Genshin was guilty.
Well, she was the assistant on that one.
Yeah, but she made a discovery that helped him determine that Genshin was the culprit. We don't get told what the discovery was, though.
Right.
We do get told that the primary coroner on the case was Dr. John H. Wilson, and also that a visiting student was also there, a visiting student from Japan, who is trained in medicine. I don't know if we explicitly say that was Mikitoba, but it's very clearly implied.
Yeah.
I think she died, but...
Yeah, but that autopsy is missing after a visit from Herlock Sholmes.
She allows us to look at it, because we want to look at it and see what's written in there.
That's right.
And she allows us to go look at it, but we can't find it in the files. And she remembers the last time that she saw it was when Sholmes came to visit a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And
with Iris.
Yeah, with Iris, and took a look at it. And after that happens, Iris gets all panicky and runs away, basically.
Yeah.
Like, whoop, I have something that I need to do right now. Goodbye.
I mean, was that before or after she was, you know, the coroner threatened to carve her up? Because that would be understandable.
Yeah.
Now we go back to the crime scene.
Yeah.
To talk to Gina again. Yeah, but she's not there immediately, but there's a trunk on the floor that wasn't there before.
Right.
And when we try to look at it, then she shows up and claims that we can't touch it because it's hers.
Right. Let's see here. So then when we talk to her, yeah, so I think she tells us, like, Gregson's notebook, right, had all the details of crimes committed. Oh, actually, we can open the trunk now, too, right?
I think after we talk to her about everything else.
Yeah. You're right. Anyway, sorry. She found the name Shin in the notebook, but she doesn't know what that could be.
Yeah, it kept coming up.
Right. She did some investigation of her own. She won't tell us about that.
Then you have to give the sort of way you're going to trick this is you're going to give Toby. I think you can give him multiple different things, but I gave him the hairpiece, which
I gave him the watch.
Yeah, and I think you can give him other stuff too. But he clearly he'll be like, find more stuff from this person, and he immediately points to the trunk. So it's clearly Gregson's trunk. And Gina admits that she found the trunk. I guess at that point it was Sandwich had it. He had just taken it from the scene. When they all rushed in, he stole the trunk.
Yeah.
And so that's when she'll allow you to sort of go through that. and it gets entered into the court record again.
Yeah, but immediately when you try to investigate it, you get attacked by Toby,
Yeah.
who goes crazy.
Oh, that's right. I forgot all about that.
So it's kind of vague as to what happens here. Like, does he actually attack us, or does he just like lick us a lot and then we fall over?
I think he licks you a lot and you fall over.
Yeah, which I couldn't tell was like, is that like the translator or the localization team like softening like Toby actually attacking you or something? But like,
No, I think he was actually attacking you here. I got the impression that it wasn't just that he was actually going crazy for a while.
yeah,
Once again, I can't remember the actual way this game ends, even though I did play it a couple of years ago. But I assume that had something to do with how the Hound of the Baskervilles got pushed into attacking. There's something in the trunk that makes dogs crazy.
Which like then would kind of lend credence in a way to. Well, no, I guess not. I was gonna say that Gregson was the Reaper or something, but then that doesn't work because it's not. It was the professor, right? But then that doesn't make sense. Well, no, I mean maybe I guess it could, right?
Maybe Gregson was the actual professor.
Yeah, like I mean it doesn't seem right, but it's like one of those things that like points to it.
I mean, I think because like after that we wake up back at home and Sholmes kind of chastises us for getting knocked out by a moderate licking from a small terrier.
That's right, yeah. I know what happened. I know what it is. Wait, Gregson's not the professor. He found whatever the professor uses to make dogs angry and accidentally got him at itself, and when he was in that Fresno Street room, a dog came in and shot him.
Shit.
Huh?
What do you
There
think
you
is
go.
in there that makes the dogs so angry?
NFTs. Sorry, anyway.
So I just went back and checked, and yeah, when you go to the trunk and Toby goes crazy, the animation is Toby just in your face, barking and showing teeth. Gina says, "Stop! You're gonna lick his face off." And then when he regains consciousness later on, when Rinalski's back at Holmes's suite, and yeah, that's when Holmes makes a crack about.
Maybe it's rhyming slang. What can lick mean?
Yeah. A moderate licking by a small terrier. So they both refer to it licking, but I guess the animation doesn't show any licking.
Well, I mean, this is also Sholmes saying that, so he probably would have said that if our face was torn off.
Well, Ryunosuke also says, like, all I remember was a dog licking my face again and again. The thing is that they gave him they didn't have a cold compress, so they put like sugar on him for some reason.
Sugar water on him.
But so it seems like maybe he was licked by the dog, but then like fell and bumped his head. So then he did manage to get injured, but I don't think it was because of a dog bite. Toby would never hurt anyone. He is a good boy.
Toby remains pure.
Yeah.
Is that sugar water thing? The sugar water thing, is that like an actual like home remedy?
No, I think Sholmes just put whatever he had on us.
Okay. I mean that's sort of how I read it, but I was also just like, maybe.
Oh, I didn't even think about it. I was just
Or maybe it's like that old thing. It was like, oh, you got a black eye, put a steak on it.
Yeah. You get licked too much by a dog, for you some sugar water.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we go back to Holmes' suite, and the first thing we find is this bizarre scene where there's someone lying on the couch. Who? I'm sorry. Did everybody else figure out who it was right away?
Yeah, it was pretty
I had a
obvious.
good idea,
It's supposed to look like Mikitoba. So, okay, it's Mikitoba on the couch wearing his normal hat and his normal outfit, and I think you can see his mustache, but he's got a mask on, and there's like
It's Kazuma's mask from earlier.
yeah, Kazuma's mask, and then there's like referred to as a scarf, but it's just like some kind of like frilly cloth,
Like a doily.
Doily, yeah, laying on his chest.
Iris is there, standing and in silence.
Yeah,
She's just looking guilty.
yeah, and he's clearly knocked out. Like he's clearly not conscious.
And there's a German song playing.
I should note that, like, at this point, I noticed Iris had like puffy cheeks, so I was like, okay, I made the internal joke to myself. Okay, she's hiding a frog in her mouth. And I'll just put a pin on that for later.
Yeah, so I mean, and then there's German music playing in the background, but we're supposed to. So then Holmes comes in, and it's a bizarre scene, and Sholmes' response is he has to go into a great deduction dance, which he thinks that this man is German because he's singing Germanic songs, which clearly he's not singing.
His mouth isn't moving.
What I like about this entire scene is that Iris is kind of like the focus of the investigation, and she doesn't speak. She can't speak for some reason. But she's clearly very annoyed with everything Sean says.
Yeah.
As she should be.
And she's locked in what the games need for her to only tell us later what's going on. So she can't move for game reasons. And so he's sort of dancing around, and each time she'll give the indication. Because like when he says something completely wrong, she'll look over to a certain area, and you get this sort of indication that, you know, she's for her, she's looking at what is causing something, and he makes the wrong assumption. So yeah, he's saying like, oh no, you gave him some herbal tea that was too strong, and it made his spirit soar, and now he has to keep singing this song over and over again. They talk about, he calls him the King of Germany once showed up at his suite, and which is a reference to a Holmes story.
Well, they say later that he actually helped out the king of Bohemia, which
he didn't remember it right.
Yeah, so that's a reference to Scandal in Bohemia, which is
right.
Which we've already done, because we had the Gotts von Ornstein, like we had the kid earlier. So like we've already done the Scandal Bohemia. We can't do that reference again.
Yeah.
Well, they do tell us that whoever Holmes did help, the King of Bohemia, was that kid's father. So
yeah, but he keeps getting, not only is he getting everything wrong here in his assumptions, but he keeps remembering things wrong, like calling it the King of Germany instead of the King of Bohemia.
Well, it works better with why the man is singing in German.
Right. It explains him clearly singing in German.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and the reason why that she's trying to hide everything is because he broke the favorite coffee cup, which is what she's trying to cover up. You know, and so of course all this has to be course corrected. You know, because at no point does any of the King of Germany coming over, drinking herbal tea and breaking Holmes' favorite coffee cup make any sense whatsoever. So the best part is that the next thing you're going to do is correct what Iris is looking at in the beginning, and she wasn't looking at the person singing. She was looking at the gramophone. Because clearly this is just... And then Holmes at one point goes, oh, that's right, why did I buy that record? Which, you know, okay. And clearly you point out the mask belongs to the Cosma. And then you take the mask off and it's Meketoba. And then the next thing that happens is you show the metal chest was what she was actually looking at, not the coffee cup. And Holmes goes and opens the chest and immediately gets knocked out by like a Looney Tunes Acme like boxing glove.
Like cartoon boxing glove, yeah. And I love this. I love this. He punches him in the air. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and he lands exactly on top of Meketoba in the exact same position.
And that is not there for the rest of the scene.
Mm-hmm. So we have to do it without him. I just love that. Just perfect gag. 10 out of 10.
Susato does some stuff for him.
Iris, before he gets hurt, though, does do a little animation where she shouts no at him, finally breaking her silence.
Mm-hmm. Telling him not to open it.
And so, yeah, you eventually find out that what she was actually trying to hide was the key that she apparently had in her mouth instead, not a frog. She had the key in her mouth, which she spit into her hand and tried to hide behind her back. And this whole time after Holmes is knocked out, it's Susato and Ryunosuke trying to like sort of do the deduction dance on their own. They're not really course correcting at that point. They're just sort of discovering further what happened.
Just feels wrong without Holmes there.
It does feel wrong. And Holmes wakes up and points out that Iris was trying to take the teacup handle away at the end, but if you look underneath the plate she was holding, that's where she's got a case file, which turns out to be the the Clint's autopsy report that Maria Gori had referenced before that was missing after Holmes and Iris had shown up there. And the reason why, and then this whole explanation here gets very convoluted and doesn't get resolved. But what happened was Iris showed up with Holmes, sees that the person who filled out the autopsy report was actually that handwriting matched that of her father, because the only thing that she had been told beforehand was that her father was Holmes's partner. He had taken a bunch of case notes. She had read the case notes, which she eventually based her stories on, but were in a person's handwriting, but was never told her father's name. So when she finds the same handwriting in the autopsy report, and that autopsy report is signed by John H. Wilson, she assumes that John H. Wilson is her father. So she steals it, brings the notes back, the autopsy reports back, and confirms that it is the same handwriting of the two people.
Which, like, what a wild thing that's for that the only fact she knows about is that these case files are written by her father, and she's never given a name. But this is the first time she's seen a paper with the handwriting and a signature on it.
And that's also when she decided to start writing the stories. And also to become a doctor, I think.
Yes. So all these determinations she's making off of the assumptions he's making and all the information that's being kept from her, but all the stuff that she's kind of sussing out on her own.
I mean, I don't think it's an unreasonable assumption to think that this thing being written and then signed, that the person who signed it is the person who wrote it. It seems perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, it's not an unreasonable assumption.
Oh no, I think it's a reasonable one. It just turns out to probably not be true, because what we find out then is that because Mikitoba regains consciousness and comes back into the scene, and it turns out that Sholmes' partner was in fact Eugen Mikitoba.
Yeah, we find that out because Susato takes a look at the file and recognizes the father's handwriting.
Yeah.
I really like it. I like that. Like the reason that the stories are about Holmes and Watson are not because it was actually Watson, but because Iris thought it was.
Yeah.
And those are the stories that the world knows.
Which immediately raises the possibility that Iris is Mikitoba's daughter.
He denies it.
And it seems like he's genuinely denying, because Susato now turns on her dad because it's like, wait a second, if you didn't tell me that you were Sholmes' partner, this guy I idolized for years, and you also are you telling me now that you fathered Iris, even though I've always been told my mother died when I was younger, and you never mentioned this. And he says, no, wait, it's not what you think. And then he's about to tell her what the actual situation is, and Sholmes shows up and is just like, nope, we got a case to go on Mikitoba, let's go. The game's afoot. It's time to go. No time for explanations. We don't do that in this game. We only go and do things and we tell people later.
There are a couple of more things. I think we are told at some point that the reason Mikitoba went to London in the first place was because Iris' mother died and he was like a wreck.
Or Susato's mother.
Yeah, Susato's mother. And also, we are told a little bit about how he and Sholmes met, and he was looking for an apartment, and he didn't have much money, so he was looking for a roommate, and that's when he met Sholmes.
It is the actual Watson story. It is that he was studying medicine. Holmes was not doing much and was just sort of researching things at the same place, and that's when they decided to split rent on a nice place
and went on adventures.
Yeah, for years, and this is where all the everything that referred to Dr. Wilson being involved and all this kind of stuff was just the wrong name, matching the handwriting that it's always been Mikitoba.
The Mikitoba really needs some royalties here, then.
Also, it begs the question: is Mikitoba been the one doing course correction? Was he the one that always did that back in the day?
Probably.
Oh.
And that, Susato, is why you didn't have a father growing up.
I love this twist.
Yeah.
I think it's really great.
I didn't see it coming. It's a good twist.
Yeah, me neither.
I immediately felt like I should have, because like he's got the hat.
He's got the hat. He's got the mustache.
Well, you can't just be like, oh, he's got Wilson's hat. He's probably Wilson.
He's got the hat, and the timing doesn't work otherwise with actual Watson, because Iris has been told that Watson was away from the country, But Watson hasn't been away for 10 years. He's only recently come to Japan because Mikotoba invited him.
He looks so correct wearing like this Englishman's suit and the little bowler hat. And it just, like, when he first showed up, he just looked really comfortable and correct in all the English attire. And, but not enough for me to mention or really file that away. And then now I'm just kicking myself, obviously.
I mean, probably because Holmes doesn't look like Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the hat, though. You gotta trust the hats.
He's got the hat, but that's about it.
You can't just go by hats every time.
I don't see how that would have led me astray at any point in this game.
Well, not in this game yet, but I'm just one of these times you're gonna go by hat and then you'll be wrong.
Yeah. Remains to be proven. But that ends the chapter. It's them taking off, this unresolved. No, for the first time we don't end a trial within an episode, and it all sets us up for the final one.
I'm actually excited because when it ending just before the trial kind of tells me, okay, this is going to be one long ass complex trial.
Yeah, there's a lot of threads that need to be resolved, and just there's going to be a lot of exposition.
So that begs the question, of course, is how far do we go?
Yeah, you probably know best because you did it most recently.
I did. Been a bit. All right. So this next part is broken up into, a trial with an investigation in the middle and a trial part 2. And I'm actually just going over the notes because if I recall all right. I think we'll have enough to talk about if you finish trial part 1 and the investigation. Sounds like a lot, but it's not that bad, So.
And I think that brings us up to a to be continued. So I think it's very obvious where the mark is.
Yeah. It's gonna. Yeah. This is. Yeah. It's you'll definitely. Yeah. Exactly right. It's save point stuff. So. Alrighty then. Sorry, I'm just looking over again because I will say. Yeah. You'll see the to be continued exactly. Alrighty. Cool. Well. Until next time, folks.
Don't touch swords or name them.